I'll never forget the night my Uber driver turned to me with fear in his eyes and said he wasn't taking me to that address. I thought he was kidding at first, but then he showed me his phone, hands trembling, and whispered that 3 people went there tonight and none of them came out. That's when I realized something was seriously wrong. My name's Olivia Moore. I'm a nurse. And that night, I was just trying to get home after another long shift. I never imagined one simple ride could turn into the most terrifying night of my life. Stay until the end, because what happened after midnight changed everything. And before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. It was one of those freezing November nights in Chicago when the streets shine from the rain and the whole city feels half asleep. I had just finished a 12-hour shift at the hospital, the kind that leaves your legs heavy and your brain running on caffeine. All I wanted was to get somewhere warm and quiet. The Uber pulled up, and I climbed into the back seat. The driver gave a polite nod through the rearview mirror. He looked tired too, maybe even more than me. His name was Raj Patel, a father of 2 who drove nights to save up for his kids' college. We talked a little at first, just small things about work and family. It felt like any other ride, calm, routine, safe. I texted my sister Sarah, letting her know I was on my way. She was the fun one, full of energy, always convincing me to do things I normally wouldn't. I was planning to stay at her place for a few days since my apartment was being fumigated. She'd promised leftover pizza, and that was enough motivation to get me through the night. As we drove, the tall downtown buildings disappeared, replaced by narrow streets lined with older houses. The rain got heavier, and the windshield wipers made that slow, dragging sound that fills the silence. I started to notice how empty the roads were. No people, no other cars, just the hum of the engine and the sound of rain. Then the GPS spoke up, telling Raj to turn onto Westbrook Avenue. I didn't think much of it until I saw his expression. His brow furrowed, and he glanced at the screen, then at me, like something didn't sit right. He asked if I was sure about the address, and I told him yes. It was the one my sister had given me. Still, something about his tone made me uneasy. I looked outside and saw the streetlights growing farther apart, the shadows stretching longer with every turn. I remember this heavy feeling starting to build in my stomach, that quiet instinct that whispers when something isn't right. At the time, I ignored it. I told myself I was just tired, but that was the moment everything started to change, because in just a few minutes, Raj would stop the car, look at me with panic in his eyes, and tell me something I'll never forget. Raj slowed the car as we turned onto a narrow street, and I noticed how the rain had started to fall harder. The windshield wipers struggled to keep up, smearing the lights into long, blurry streaks. I pulled my jacket tighter and stared at the glowing GPS on his dashboard. The route pulsed red as if even the app was warning us not to go that way. Raj tapped the screen a few times, frowning. The GPS voice kept repeating, "Turn left on Westbrook Avenue," in that calm, robotic tone, completely unaware of how uneasy the air inside the car had become. I looked out the window and saw old, abandoned houses, their windows boarded up, some with "for sale" signs half buried in the wet grass. It was the kind of neighborhood that felt forgotten, like time had given up on it. He muttered something under his breath, and I asked if everything was okay. He didn't answer right away. Then, still staring straight ahead, he said, "Are you sure this is the right address?" I unlocked my phone and checked the text from Sarah again. The message was clear. "I moved to 142 Westbrook. You'll see my blue car parked outside." I nodded and said, "Yeah, that's it. My sister just moved there." Raj shook his head slightly, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. "I've driven this route for months," he said. "Nobody lives out here anymore." That sentence made something shift inside me. The rain, the silence, the empty houses. It all felt heavier now. I laughed a little, trying to shake off the tension. "Well, she's probably one of the few who does," I said. "Maybe it's just quiet because of the rain." But Raj didn't smile. He pulled the car to a slow stop under a flickering streetlight. The light above us buzzed, cutting in and out like it was struggling to stay alive. He opened his phone, scrolling through something quickly, his thumb moving fast. Then he turned the screen toward me. On it were 3 Uber trip logs, all from that same night, all showing the same destination, Westbrook Avenue. Each one started normally but ended abruptly with the status, trip canceled, and no drop-off time. The last one was time-stamped just 40 minutes before mine. Raj's voice shook slightly when he spoke. 3 passengers tonight, all heading to that address. The rides ended halfway, and their phones went offline right after. I called one of them. It went straight to voicemail. When I tried again, the number wasn't active anymore. For a second, I didn't say anything. My heart started to pound harder, but my brain fought to stay logical. Maybe they lost signal. Maybe they canceled and walked. My mind came up with 100 harmless reasons, but my body didn't believe any of them. My stomach twisted. I could feel the weight of his fear pressing into me. "Look," I said finally, trying to sound calm, "it's probably just some kind of glitch or coincidence." But my voice didn't sound convincing, not even to me. Raj looked straight ahead through the rain and whispered, "No coincidence feels like this." A shiver ran down my spine. I looked out the window again. Every house seemed darker now, the rain swallowing up what little light was left. I noticed something else. There were no other cars, no movement, not even the sound of dogs barking or TVs playing from inside the homes. It was like the whole street was holding its breath. I pulled out my phone and called Sarah. It rang twice before cutting off. I tried again, and this time it didn't ring at all. Just silence. I texted her, "Hey, I'm close. You up?" A single gray checkmark appeared, but it never turned blue. I told Raj maybe she was asleep, but he didn't answer. He was staring at the rearview mirror, his eyes darting like he'd seen something behind us. When I turned to look, all I saw were streaks of rain sliding down the back window. That's when he said it. The sentence that made my skin crawl. "I'm not taking you there." For a moment, I thought he was joking. "Excuse me?" I asked, but his face was pale and serious. "I don't care what address you put in," he said quietly. "I'm not driving down that street. Not tonight." He locked his phone, set it face down on the dash, and took a shaky breath. "You seem like a good person, and I don't want anything to happen to you. There's something wrong about that place. Every driver I know avoids it. It's like people go there and vanish. And I'm not about to be the next one who tries." The car was dead silent except for the rain. My heart was thudding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was being dramatic, but deep down, part of me agreed with him. Something about this night felt off, like the city was warning us to turn around. But then I thought about Sarah. If she was waiting, if she needed me, how could I just leave? I stared at the glowing blue line on the GPS that led deeper into the darkness and said quietly, "Then just drop me nearby. I'll walk the rest of the way." Raj looked at me, disbelief flashing in his eyes, but he didn't argue. He restarted the car, and as we rolled forward again, I couldn't shake the feeling that something unseen was waiting at the end of that road. Raj didn't say a word after I told him to drop me nearby. He just gripped the wheel tighter and gave a slow nod. The car started moving again, the tires hissing through puddles as we drove deeper into the neighborhood. The GPS line on the dashboard pulsed faintly, and every time we got closer to the destination, Raj's knuckles seemed to turn a little whiter. I sat in the back seat, watching the dark houses slide past. Some were half burned, others boarded up completely. A few had old toys lying in the yards, like families had left in a hurry and never came back. The deeper we went, the more it felt like we had crossed into some forgotten corner of the city that no one was meant to find again. I tried calling Sarah one more time. It rang once, and then went straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's me," I said softly. "I'm almost there. Can you call me back?" My voice didn't sound steady, and the silence that followed only made the fear inside me grow heavier. Raj glanced at me through the rearview mirror. "She's not answering?" he asked. I shook my head. His eyes darted back to the road. "Maybe she's asleep," I said, but neither of us believed it. The car slowed as we reached the corner of Westbrook Avenue. The street sign was rusted, hanging by one bolt, creaking in the wind. Every instinct in me screamed that this was wrong. There were no streetlights here, just darkness stretching on both sides. The only light came from the car's headlights cutting through the mist. Raj stopped the car a few blocks away from the address. "This is as close as I'm going," he said quietly. "If she lives here, you'll see her car." I nodded, though my heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I looked out the window and saw nothing but shadows. The houses here looked worse. Cracked windows, peeling paint, doors half open like someone had left in a hurry. Then, through the rain, I spotted a faint reflection of blue light. My chest tightened. "That's her car," I said, pointing. Raj followed my gaze but didn't say anything. His jaw was tight, his hands trembling slightly. "Be careful," he muttered. I thanked him, trying to sound braver than I felt, then stepped out of the car. The rain hit me like cold needles. My shoes sank into the muddy ground as I walked toward the faint blue reflection. Each step felt louder than the last. The world around me completely silent except for the rain. When I reached the car, I knew instantly it was Sarah's. The dent on the back bumper, the small dream catcher hanging from the mirror, it was hers. But the driver's door was open, rain dripping onto the seat. Her purse was still inside, and the keys were in the ignition. My hands began to shake. "Sarah?" I called out, my voice echoing weakly into the night. No answer. Behind me, Raj got out of the car and called my name, his voice urgent. "Get back in, Olivia," he said. "Now." But I was frozen in place. Every part of me wanted to run, but my heart wouldn't let me leave without finding her. I looked toward the house in front of me. The curtains were drawn, but there was a faint flicker of light from inside, like a candle or a phone screen. I took a few steps closer, my heart hammering so loud I could barely think. Then I saw something move near the window, just a shadow, quick and slight, but enough to make my stomach twist. I turned to Raj. "Someone's in there," I said. He shook his head, rain running down his face. "We need to go. Please." I hesitated, torn between fear and love for my sister. What if she was hurt? What if she needed me right now? I couldn't just drive away. "I can't leave without checking," I said, my voice breaking. Raj took a step closer. "Olivia, you don't understand. People go in there and don't come back." The way he said it made my whole body go cold. His voice wasn't angry, it was scared. He believed every word of it. Still, I took another step toward the porch. The wooden boards creaked under my shoes, loud and hollow. My phone flashlight cut through the darkness just enough for me to see muddy footprints leading up to the door, fresh ones. My hands trembled as I reached for the handle. Suddenly, a noise came from inside, a faint scraping sound, like furniture being dragged across the floor. Then a low thud. My heart jumped into my throat. I turned to Raj, and in that moment, the fear in his face said everything. He was already backing away toward the car. "We have to go," he shouted. But before I could move, my phone buzzed in my hand. The caller ID made my blood run cold. It was Sarah. I answered immediately, my voice shaking. "Sarah? Where are you?" "I'm outside your house." There was no reply, only static. Then, through the crackling noise, I heard breathing, slow, uneven, and close to the phone. My heart felt like it stopped. "Sarah?" I whispered again. The line went dead. I stood there frozen, staring at the dark window, the rain pouring harder now. Something deep inside me knew that whatever had happened here wasn't over. Raj grabbed my arm, pulling me back toward the car. "We're leaving. Now." I didn't argue. We got in, and as he hit the gas, I looked out the window one last time. That's when I saw it, a faint light in the upstairs window. For a split second, I swore I saw someone standing there, watching us leave. My body went numb. I didn't say a word. Neither did Raj. We just drove in silence, the sound of rain the only thing breaking through the terror that had taken hold of us both. Raj didn't slow down until we were several blocks away. The car's headlights carved shaky paths through the sheets of rain, and my heart refused to calm down. I kept turning around, staring through the fogged-up rear window, half expecting someone, or something, to be following us. My hands were still trembling from the phone call. I couldn't stop hearing that breathing. I knew it was real. I knew it was Sarah. I told Raj to stop the car. He hesitated, but I insisted. We pulled over under a broken streetlight. its orange glow flickering like it was struggling to stay alive. The rain softened for a moment, and in that quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. "I have to go back," I said. My voice cracked, but I meant it. Raj turned toward me, eyes wide. "Olivia, if you go back there, I'm not coming with you," he said. "Whatever is happening at that house, it's not something we can fix." He wasn't wrong, but my sister's open car door kept replaying in my mind. Her purse sitting there in the rain didn't make sense. I couldn't just leave her. I pulled out my phone and tried calling. Again. This time, the call connected, but what I heard made my skin crawl. A faint humming sound, like someone whispering through static. I called her name again and again, but there was no response. Then, a voice finally spoke, soft, shaky, almost like a whisper against the speaker. "Olivia, don't come here." Before I could say anything, the line went dead again. Raj looked at me, fear etched across his face. "You heard her," he said. "She's telling you to stay away." But something about that voice didn't sound like my sister. It sounded like her at first, but the last few words, there was something off, something not human in the way it echoed. I opened the car door and stepped out into the rain. Raj shouted my name, but I was already running back toward the direction we came from. The cold water splashed up my legs, the wind whipping through my hair. Every part of me wanted to stop, but love overpowered logic. I couldn't leave her. The neighborhood looked even darker than before. The houses loomed like empty shells, the air heavy and wet. When I turned the corner, I could see the faint blue of Sarah's car again. It was still there, the door hanging open, the rain pouring in. Raj's car headlights dimmed in the distance as he reluctantly followed me, unable to just drive away. I reached the porch again and called out her name. "Sarah, it's me." No answer. The door to the house was slightly ajar now, swaying gently with each gust of wind. The muddy footprints I'd seen earlier were smeared, mixed with new ones leading inside. Every step toward that door felt wrong. The air smelled like damp wood and rust. I turned on my phone flashlight, the thin beam cutting through the darkness, landing on the hallway ahead. The wallpaper was peeling, and the floorboards creaked under my weight. Somewhere deeper in the house, I heard a faint dripping sound. I whispered her name again. Nothing. I walked slowly through the living room, furniture covered in dust sheets, a broken lamp, a half-shattered mirror on the wall. My reflection looked pale and unfamiliar. I reached the kitchen, and that's when I noticed something that made my stomach twist. On the counter was a phone, face down. I picked it up. It was Sarah's. The same case with a sunflower sticker she'd bought last month. The screen was cracked, but when I pressed the power button, it lit up. The lock screen showed the time, 12:16 a.m., and a missed call from my number. My hands started shaking. She had answered me. She had heard me. But where was she now? Behind me, I heard Raj's footsteps. He must have followed me in, though I didn't remember hearing the door open. "We shouldn't be here," he said quietly. His voice echoed strangely, like the house swallowed the sound. Then, from upstairs, something fell. A heavy thud, followed by a scraping noise, like furniture being dragged. Raj's flashlight snapped toward the staircase. I swallowed hard and whispered, "Sarah?" No response, just the slow drag continuing above us. We climbed the stairs together, each step groaning beneath our weight. The air grew colder with every step. When we reached the landing, I saw muddy footprints leading to a room at the end of the hall. The door was half closed, light flickering underneath. I pushed it open, and what I saw froze me completely. The room looked like someone had been living there, blankets on the floor, half-eaten food, candles burned down to stubs. On the wall, written in black marker, were words smeared and uneven. "Leave before it takes you." In the corner, a phone buzzed on the floor. It was another one. Different case. No lock screen, but still active. The Uber app was open, showing the same destination, 142 Westbrook Avenue. 3 names were listed below it, all marked as trip incomplete. Raj stared at the phone, his face pale. "That's them," he whispered. "The other riders." Before I could react, a faint sound came from behind us. The floorboards creaked slowly, like someone was walking closer. Raj turned, shining his light down the hall, but there was no one there. Just the sound of breathing, soft and uneven, echoing through the dark. I grabbed his arm. "We need to leave," I said. But when we turned toward the stairs, the lights flickered once and went out completely. The house fell into total darkness. Then, from the top of the stairs, a figure stepped into the beam of my phone's weak light. It was wearing Sarah's jacket. My breath caught in my throat. I whispered her name, but the figure didn't move. Its face was wrong, too pale, eyes wide open but empty, like they didn't belong to her at all. Raj grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the window. "Go!" he shouted. We crashed through the door, down the stairs, and out into the rain. The cold air hit me like a wave, but I didn't stop running until we reached the car. When we finally drove off, I looked back one last time. The house stood completely still, dark except for one faint glow in the upstairs window. It was Sarah's phone screen, still lit, displaying an incoming call from my number. My chest tightened so hard, it hurt. That was the moment I knew. I didn't get my sister back that night. Whatever answered me on the phone wasn't her. By the time Raj and I made it out of that neighborhood, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, but neither of us could stop shaking. The car was silent except for the sound of the windshield wipers brushing away what was left of the storm. My clothes were soaked, my shoes squelched with every shift of my feet, and I could still feel the echo of that house clinging to my skin. I stared out the window, watching the empty streets slip past, each one feeling safer than the last. But no matter how far we drove, I couldn't stop thinking about Sarah, her phone, her voice, that figure in the window wearing her jacket. It all felt too real to be a dream and too impossible to be real life. Raj pulled over at a 24-hour gas station a few miles away. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, too bright after the darkness we'd come from. He turned off the engine and leaned forward, resting his forehead on the steering wheel. "I told you something was wrong with that place," he said, his voice low, heavy with guilt and fear. "I shouldn't have let you get out of the car." I didn't answer right away. My throat felt tight, my thoughts tangled in everything that had just happened. I opened my phone again and scrolled through my call history. The last call from Sarah was still there, time-stamped 12:14 a.m., the same moment I heard her whisper, "Don't come here." I clicked on it, hoping to hear something, but all that came through was static. I replayed it twice, then 3 times, listening closer. In the background, under the noise, I could swear I heard faint breathing, and then a distant, distorted voice that didn't sound like her at all. When I looked up, Raj was staring out the windshield, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. "You should tell the police," he said finally. "They need to know." I nodded, though part of me wondered how much of it they would even believe. 2 people claiming they saw something strange at an abandoned house? A figure that looked like my sister but wasn't? It sounded like the kind of story you'd hear late at night on the internet and forget by morning. Still, I knew we had to try. We drove straight to the nearest police station. The fluorescent light inside buzzed the same way the one at the gas station had, cold and constant. I told the officer everything, from the ride, to the open car door, to the figure in the window. Raj added what he'd seen, even showed them the canceled Uber trips on his phone. The officer listened carefully, jotting down notes, his expression tightening when he heard the address. He looked up after a long pause. "Westbrook Avenue?" he asked. "You're sure?" I nodded. He exchanged a look with another officer standing nearby. "We've had multiple calls about that area," he said slowly. "People disappearing, reports of lights in abandoned houses. Every time we send someone to check, there's nothing there." His words sent a chill down my spine. He said they'd send a team to investigate, but part of me knew they wouldn't find anything. That house felt like it existed in its own world, a place that swallowed evidence and left only fear behind. They took my statement, thanked us for coming in, and told us to get some rest. Rest was the last thing I could do. When Raj dropped me off at a friend's apartment, I could barely stand. My hands were still trembling when I unlocked the door. The moment I was alone, the silence hit me hard. I sank onto the couch, clutching Sarah's cracked phone in both hands. Around 12:30 a.m., I turned on the TV to distract myself. That's when the local news came on with a breaking story. The reporter stood in front of a familiar house, police lights flashing behind her. My heart stopped. It was Westbrook Avenue. She was talking about a police investigation, about multiple missing person cases linked to this address. They showed the same blue car parked in front, Sarah's car. I couldn't breathe. The reporter said no bodies had been found, only personal items and phones still logged into rideshare apps. My vision blurred as tears filled my eyes. Her last message to me, "Save me some of that leftover pizza," was still pinned to the top of our chat. Over the next few weeks, I called her number every night. Sometimes it went straight to voicemail. Sometimes it rang twice, and then stopped. Once, late one night, it picked up. There was no voice, just the sound of slow breathing. I froze, whispering her name over and over until the line disconnected. I still take the same route to work every few days. It's the fastest way, and it passes just a few blocks from Westbrook Avenue. Every time I get close, my stomach twists, and I find myself gripping the steering wheel tighter. I tell myself I won't look, but I always do. The houses are gone now, demolished, fenced off, the land cleared. But even from a distance, I can feel it. That same pull, that same wrongness in the air. Sometimes late at night when I check my Uber app, I see something strange. A canceled ride request sitting at the top of the list. Same address, same time, different name. When I click on it, it disappears. I don't know what happened to Sarah that night. The police closed the case after months with no answers. They called it an unsolved disappearance, but I can't accept that. I still believe she's out there somewhere, or at least a part of her is. Raj quit driving a few weeks later. He said he couldn't be on the road after midnight anymore. We still talk sometimes, both pretending we've moved on. But the truth is, neither of us did. That night left a scar that won't heal. If there's one thing I learned from that night, it's that sometimes the warning you ignore is the one that saves your life. When someone tells you not to go somewhere, listen, because some places aren't meant to be found, and some doors should never be opened. And if you made it to the end of this story, thank you for staying with me. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And remember, never trust a quiet street after midnight.